As you guys know, I'm a soft-spoken Tennessee football fan, and I just love the tradition and passion of the program, and I honestly want to see the team do well. Sadly, they have not been the most storied program over the past few years, and new head coach Josh Heupel is hoping to come in and change that narrative. Tennessee has a pretty weird quarterback situation going into this season, and they will have a talented true freshman, a second-year kid with a super high ceiling, an upperclassman who has been in the program for a couple of years, and a transfer with starting experience and a different philosophy. Today we'll talk about whether Kaidon Salter, Harrison Bailey, Brian Maurer, or Hendon Hooker deserves to win the starting job for Tennessee, and briefly discuss how all those players got to this point to begin with and what they will bring to the table. But first, if you love college football content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to support what I'm doing here, be sure to give the video a like, suggest what I should do next, and be sure to stay until the end to help the video get in the algorithm. Now let's get started and talk about Tennessee's quarterback room.
I've been having hood dreams, ball player, rap star, Billy been taking BMW, I ain't got no black Harley dog faders. Two twin blocks and make them shake it like a salt shake. Ain't make it to the league, but I'm still ballin', I was born for this. Never thought I'd see the day when I can make it, should I go legit?
I first want to start with the most exciting option for Tennessee football, and that is redshirt freshman quarterback Harrison Bailey. Bailey was a big-time recruit coming out of Georgia's high school football system, and he chose to commit to Jeremy Pruitt and the Volunteers. Bailey said, quote, "If you know anything about me, I like to build stuff. I like taking a program that is not where it needs to be and taking it to where it should be. I like building stuff around me. I like to be the one. I want that responsibility." Obviously, the Tennessee fan base was super excited about this, and they wanted Bailey to start right away, as he probably had the highest ceiling on the team, was the most talented in my opinion, and had a lot of hype to him. But Bailey barely got a chance because Pruitt thought Tennessee was an actual contender in the SEC East, and chose to ride it out with upperclassman Jarrett Garantano, who already had plenty of chances up to this point and had already hit his ceiling. And honestly, he was given way too many chances in 2020, and I don't know why the guy started the whole year. Apparently, Bailey wasn't ready to be the starter right away, but when he did play, you could see the ceiling was high, but he had not put it all together yet. But he definitely needed those in-game reps, and anyone would be a fool to think that most freshman quarterbacks could come in and play without having any kinks in their game. He looked timid and scared at times when he did play, but it was just good that he got his feet wet on the field, and I do think that he'll be a really good player in the future. He went 48 of 68 for 578 yards and 4 scores during his playing time, and he had a memorable long drive against Florida, and then he eventually got pulled during that game. I'm personally a day one Harrison Bailey fan, and I want him to win the job. Moving on, let's talk about the experienced guy who should win the starting nod if it started right now, Hendon Hooker. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school and chose to play for Justin Fuente and Virginia Tech. After coming off the bench for a bit, Hooker finally started some games in 2019, and he threw for 1,555 yards and 13 scores, and only had 2 interceptions in his time as a starter that year. He also was a dual threat guy as he ran for almost 400 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. In 2020, his numbers went down tremendously, but he was injured to start the year, and that probably affected it. He did need a change in scenery though, and he chose to transfer to Tennessee, as we all know, and he will compete for the starting job right away, and will have more experience than anyone. Back when Jeremy Pruitt was the head coach, he had this to say about Hendon Hooker. Quote, "We look forward to Hendon joining the Tennessee football family this semester. Hendon is a very talented and dynamic quarterback with multiple years of Power 5 experience. He'll be a great addition to our quarterback room and make a positive impact with 2 years of eligibility remaining." Personally, I watched Hooker a bit when he was at Virginia Tech, and I definitely thought he was a good player, but I am more so skeptical on how he will translate to Tennessee. Josh Heupel is a passing-heavy quarterback, and his quarterbacks were guys like Mackenzie Milton and Dylan Gabriel, and I wouldn't say that Hooker is a traditional air raid style quarterback, or a guy who's going to throw the ball 400 to 500 yards a game. But we will have to wait and see how this all happens. Next, we have the wild card of the quarterback room, and that is true freshman Kaidon Salter. He committed to Tennessee over the likes of Auburn and Baylor, and he felt he was treated royally by the Tennessee coaching staff, and that's sort of why he went there. He said, quote, "Tennessee told me I was the only 2021 quarterback they were recruiting. People were trying to commit, and they weren't letting them commit. They were waiting on me to see what my decision was. You can't beat a school that's only recruiting you." That was real big. It was an eye-opener. I still can't believe that, but props to Tennessee for being committed to one guy. Recently, he was compared to Deshaun Watson by Trent Dilfer, and I can kind of see why the comparison was made. Dilfer said, quote, "I remember looking at Deshaun Watson at 17 years old and seeing a lot of similarities with Kaidon Salter, their joint structure, their broad shoulders, and their natural length. You gotta remember, when you're projecting quarterbacks, it's not about what they are now, but it's about more so what they're gonna become. And I think Kaidon Salter is going to become a monster and has got a clean stroke and has a ton of juice." That's a lot of high praise for someone who was not even a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, but of course he still was a very respectable guy, as according to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star recruit, the number 6 dual threat quarterback, and the 154th best player in the class of 2021. Salter said he wants to be known as a guy who can both run the ball and pass the ball at a big time level, and I definitely think he'll have the tools to accomplish that. He's also not just some kid who has a ton of hype because of his athletic ability, he's someone like Joe Milton, and he was actually a stud back home in Texas. He threw for over 2,700 yards and 31 touchdowns as a senior, and also was a 1,000-yard rusher and would lead his team all the way to the state championship game, and he was seen as a local Texas football legend. I briefly watched some of Salter's highlights from high school, and I think he has a lot of potential to be a good player, and I immediately thought about Josh Dobbs. Maybe it's a fair comparison, maybe it's not, but I think Salter will be a good quarterback in his time for the Volunteers and could have that killer instinct that they've been missing since Dobbs left. We will have to wait and see how the spring game and the offseason would go for him, but I assume he'll be back in the thick of the quarterback battle and he has a chance to win the job. Finally, we have to look at the guy who nobody is talking about and often forgets, Brian Maurer. He was not a big-time recruit coming out of high school, and sadly, he is most known for his battle with depression and the time that he actually thought about committing suicide. Maurer said, quote, "I thought I lost my battle with depression and my pain had to come to an end. As I was going to do it, I looked up and said, God, if this isn't your plan for me, please send me a sign." Apparently 2 minutes later, his mom called him saying that he had a baby nephew, and she was saying that she loved him. From that moment on, Brian knew that if he ended his pain, he'd be causing so much more pain to all the other people in his life, and thank God he did not act upon anything, and he has helped raise a lot of awareness for depression, and I'm glad to see that he's doing well now. He's gotten a chance to play over the last 2 years in Knoxville, and he's made a couple of starts, but he has struggled for the most part, as he's only thrown for 541 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the more concerning aspect is he's had 5 interceptions to go along the way. There were rumors he was going to transfer midway through the 2020 season, but he ended up sticking with Tennessee, and he is staying for the long haul. Do I think he will ever play again? Probably not, but I love his story, and I hope the best for him moving forwards, and he's a good guy for college football to have around. Overall, Tennessee is one of the more fascinating quarterback rooms in the nation, and I have no idea who will be starting come September. Harrison Bailey has the most potential, Salter may have the most talent, and Hooker has the most experience. But it'll be a long battle in camp, and we'll have to see who emerges victorious. Who do you guys think will win? If you're a Tennessee fan or just a casual fan, I would love to know who you think will win this quarterback job and why. I also want to know which quarterback you like the most for the long haul, and be sure to let me know another school I should take a look at next. Before you go, if you want to support what I'm doing here on YouTube, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe if you're new and love college football, and check out all my other videos, including my video I did about Ohio State's quarterback room. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.